So yeah, thanks for everyone joining today. I've had a lot of conversations in the last 5 to 6 months about people starting to think about scenarios later in life. I've also done a lot of work with my good friend here, Shane Hayes. Helping people make that transition. I've also had a couple of very close family experiences in the last 24 months as well. That's really opened my eyes to the complexity of this area. So I thought, what would be a really good value add for some of our clients and some of our network is to bring Shane in, and give a bit of an explanation around, what are some of the things that we need to be thinking about when it comes to aged care, and how can, as we've got here, take the confusion out of it all. So what we've got for you today is we want to look at the different types of care, so understanding the full spectrum of options available, when we should start planning. Okay, so identifying the right time to begin preparing for an aged care transition. We'll talk about some of the recent developments that could impact aged care decisions. So there's been a lot of changes in the industry really recently, and then a few tools and strategies to ensure that you feel certain about your choices. Okay. So first of all, hopefully most of you do know me. So I'm Jayden Post. I'm one of the principal partners here at Cruise. I've been an advisor for over 10 years, predominantly work with families and business owners. And Shane, I'll hand it over to you to introduce yourself.
Thanks, mate. Thanks, Jayden. Hey, everybody. Shane Hayes is my name. I run a business called Family Aged Care Advocates. I started the business probably about 7 years ago. Before that, I was like Jayden. I was a financial planner, doing work in that space. And then about 9 years ago, I had a situation where I had to help someone navigate through this aged care stuff. And I may not look it, but I like to think I'm reasonably intelligent. And when I got through that, I just thought, man, how does anyone work that stuff out? So I decided to, and I live in northern New South Wales, I looked around down here and I thought, there's no one doing this. No one's helping people get through what I just got through. So that's why I started the business, Family Aged Care Advocates, and I just help people get through a pretty messy, horrible, confusing, complex time in their lives. So that's how Family Aged Care Advocates was born, Jayden.
Perfect, mate. And I know you've helped a lot of people in your time there. Tell me, Shane, who are you really talking to? Who are the people that you typically work with?
Yep. So it's a good question, because when I say to people I help people navigate aged care, our mind is automatically drawn to, elderly mum and or dad. But to be very honest with you, over the last 7 years, for those elderly mums and dads who are lucky enough to have family around and have family around who do care about them, a lot of the work, or the catalyst for the work that I get involved in, starts with the adult children. And it's typically the daughter. Typically the professional, busy, working daughter. For some reason, they seem to miss the family meeting when it comes to looking after mum and dad, and they're the ones I get contacted by, because the brothers, if you've got brothers, the brothers will sort of say to the daughter or to their sister, you've always been mum and dad's favourite, so why don't you look after this next bit in their lives? So consequently, a lot of the time, for those people who have got family, they're the ones I'm talking to. And I've, 2 cases recently, one this morning, one yesterday afternoon, got phoned by the adult daughter. So that's my sort of primary market, if you like, Jayden.
Yeah. Do you think there's any particular reason why adult children, often carry the biggest burden in aged care planning?
Well, a bit like me when I was doing it 9 years ago, and I used to say this to my wife, it was like I had 2 full-time jobs. I was doing my day job, and then I was coming home at night and doing my aged care job. And when you're going through this, or if you know anyone who has been through it, especially when you're the adult child, who have got your own lives. You've got your own families, you've got your own work, you've got your own pleasure activities, and then when you lump this aged care stuff for mum and or dad on top of that, that's the reason why it can get quite overwhelming for people.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, maybe Shane, talk us through the aged care landscape and all the different options that are available to someone.
Mm-hmm. So as we age, as we get older, and we're all going to do it, we're not going to escape it. So this is for everybody. There comes a time in our lives where we just need a little bit more help than we can do ourselves. So that's the aged care process, if you like. And most of it starts off with activities around the home. And people then say, well, I just need a bit of help with some of the things I'm doing at home here because it's getting a bit too much for me for whatever reason. Then we go down the path of when things get too much at home and we can't look after each other or can't look after ourselves properly. That's when we start to look at the residential aged care path, which is going into an aged care facility full time. And I can honestly tell you, in the 7 years that I've been doing this, no one has gleefully ran or skipped into one of those places.
Yeah.
They're a place you go to when the help you're getting at home or the help you need in your own home gets a bit too much, and we need a bit more 24/7 care. So that's when families start talking to me about aged care facilities. Aged care facilities, we got respite care there. It's a bit like you can go into an aged care facility. I call it try before you buy. You can go in for some respite just to have a bit of a look around and see whether it's you or not. But the respite care is also very much for the people who are left at home or the family who are caring for that person. Because when you've got to care for someone and it becomes a 24/7 job, that can be pretty full on. So at times you need a bit of a break yourselves from that process, yeah?
Yeah.
And then, well, palliative and transitional care, that's sadly at the moment, there are a lot of people in hospitals at the moment who the hospitals are wanting to get them out of the place because they need to go into either aged care into a facility or go back home again. And especially when it comes to aged care facilities, we just don't have enough in Australia. So that's the palliative or the transitional care, typically, and we'll talk a little about the next slide there, Jayden, about, where these things sort of start. But that's typically the aged care journey. We start at home. We want to live in our home as long as we possibly can. Then it gets to a point where something happens and we might end up in hospital, which then leads on to either going home with more help, or you get the indication from the medical people that you can't go home. You're going into aged care. So that's typically the aged care journey.
You mentioned at the start of the call, you've had a call yesterday and another one this morning. What are some of those common family scenarios that you do see that, ignite the fire in people to get started on this?
Yeah, good question, Jayden. And there's three common scenarios, if you like. They're the ones I hear a lot of, Starts off where someone's at home, they have a fall, they break something or injure something, and then we're off to hospital. And the hospital's job is to fix people up as quickly as they can. And then hospital beds are in demand as much as aged care facilities are in demand. So the hospital then says, well, we fixed up mum. She can either go home, and if she goes home, she's going to need a fair bit of help to transition back into home and live there. Or you ultimately get told that, sorry, just mum can't go home. You need to start looking at residential aged care. So falls are a big deal. So when in the family, and this is for something for adult kids to keep a bit of an eye on, is if mum and or dad at home are starting to have some falls, and they're probably not going to tell you they're doing that unless you see it, but you might see some bruising or whatever it might be. But falls are not a really good, they're not good. That's normally a slippery slope downwards to things having to move really fast in aged care. Yeah.
You mentioned something really important there too, Shane, about potentially parents wanting to hide, a declining, loss of independence or, declining mobility or something like that. Is that another really common issue that you do see?
We don't want to talk about getting old, Jayden, because it's not a good a topic as a footy.
Yeah.
So we don't want to talk about getting old, and we don't want to talk about typically getting old and needing a bit of a hand. And so consequently, and we'll talk a bit about this in some future slides here, mate, but it's typically not something that we want to sit around the dinner table or around the Christmas gig and talk about. So we keep a lot of that stuff to ourselves. Mm-hmm. And that's why some of the signs around, falls and maybe some bruising and those sorts of things, that's a big deal, because when people are having falls in their home, we need to get to the bottom of that, and we need to work out a way to try to fix that. But it's not something that's going to typically come up in your typical family conversation, Jayden, unless you go digging for it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean that sounds like a bit of an emergency. Oh crap, something's happened. We need to do something. Obviously not the ideal time to actually start planning for aged care, I'd imagine. So when should we start planning?
Well, it's a really good point, Jayden, because I said 80% of my work is with the adult children. I reckon over the 7 years, about 50 to 60%, over half of my work is coming to me from what I call families in crisis. Yep. Something has happened, and now we want to talk to you, Shane, because we need to do some things about this, and we needed to do them yesterday. And the one thing I'll say about the aged care system, as broken as it is and as confusing and complex as it is, it doesn't move real fast. So when you're in a situation where, you're having to move fast, because if you're ever living this aged care journey, what you'll hear from people in hospitals and wherever you go is things like, you have to do something and you should have done it yesterday. So you feel like you're being pressed to make decisions really, really quickly. Mm-hmm. And sadly, the aged care system does not keep up with that. So, and one this morning with a daughter for mum, and we were having a conversation. Mum's now in hospital and things aren't looking great in terms of her going back to her home. And the daughter said to me, Shane, we probably should have started talking or thinking about this 6 months ago. And I went, yep, it would have helped. So can you go back to that previous slide, Jayden? Sorry, yep. Mate. Just want to just talk about a couple other things there. So One of the things about the aged care journey not going fast, or the aged care system not going fast, is, at some stage when mum's in a hospital and the hospital's saying, well, we need the bed, mum can't go home, and you need to go and find an aged care facility, that's when you start beating the streets and knocking on doors at aged care facilities in the local area. And everyone will say to you, well, come on in. You need to fill out some forms, because everybody's got their own different forms. We'll put mum on a wait list. And by the way, she's number 54. We'll call you when we're ready. So those wait lists for aged care facilities, because we don't have enough of them here in northern New South Wales, but also throughout Australia, they've all got wait lists. So when a hospital's pressing you to say, well, come on, you need to come and pick up mum, and she needs to go to an aged care facility, hurry up about nominating which one that is, that takes time. So wait lists are a big deal.
And practically, what could a family do in that situation? Like, is it just you need more care at home? The family's got to put in more and take care of them, or potentially that the parent or the family member has to move further away than they ordinarily would like to.
A bit of that. Wait lists, there are varying ways that facilities reprioritise their wait lists. Obviously, somebody who's in hospital would probably go up the waiting list, yeah?
Mhm.
But there are other things that you can do. So, for instance, having someone's name down on a wait list maybe before you actually need the service, yeah?
Yep.
So, because there's such long waiting lists, you might have a bit of a feeling that maybe that's the way we're going and put mum and or dad's name down on a wait list sort of before you think they're ready.
Mm-hmm.
And then the facility ring you and say, hey, Jayden, we've got a bed for your dad. And you can say, look, thanks, mate. Not ready yet, but keep them on the waiting list. Yep. So there are some things that you can do to help yourself move up the wait list. The other thing is because when you go and knock on these aged care facility doors, they give you a mountain of paperwork and say, here, fill out our admission forms. And everybody's got their own forms. Ridiculous in Australia. Surely we could have one set of forms for everybody. Mm-hmm. But the thing about the forms that you fill out is you can imagine someone who's sitting at the other end of the facility and the admissions person, they get all these admission forms. The first thing I reckon they look at is who's filled it out correctly and who's given us all the information we need. Yep. And if you do that and your ducks are lined up a bit that way, I reckon you go up the wait list a little bit. So there are some ways that you can help with that process if or when you're in the cut and thrust of finding something fast.
Yep.
Yep.
And what about navigating this next one when you got multiple siblings who are all powers of attorney for the parents? They're all trying to make what they think is the best decision, and sometimes what they all think is the best decision isn't the same.
Yep. So, contrary to popular belief, there are some really great families out there, but there's some really crappy families as well. And I get to see the full continuum of that. And this is your typical scenario, Jayden. And I said it before with the adult daughter. You get, as the adult daughter, you get nominated because the boys think you've always been the favourite, and whatever decision you make, and I'll call her Amy, whatever decision you make, Amy, we're going to back you 100%. And that works until Amy does something that Jayden and I don't agree about. And then all of a sudden it's, we knew you shouldn't have been in charge, Amy. We knew you were going to stuff this up. So there's consequently a lot of, a lot more than I would like to see argy-bargy between siblings when it comes to aged care for mum and or dad, yeah? Mm-hmm. And sadly, I have a little saying, money does the strangest things to the sanest of minds. Yep. And when money gets thrown into the equation, and I've had it probably more often than I would like to, and I think it's going to be a problem that's going to get bigger and bigger. Sometimes the kids are more interested in what's in it for me than what can we do for mum and dad. Yeah. So I'm always on the lookout for that and trying to I'm not a professional family mediator, so I sort of steer clear of that a bit, Jayden. But, there are times where we really have to sort of put the pencils down and say, really, let's refocus on what's important here. And it's not you, it's mum and dad.
Yeah. Is there another similar but common scenario, perhaps, where, mum needs to go into a care facility, but dad's really resistant? Wants to care for mum at home, but, isn't a carer, shouldn't be a carer, and, has the final say ultimately. And it's the kids that are saying, like, no, that shouldn't happen. Do you ever come across scenarios like that?
Yeah, because it's hard, when we've been married for 45, 50 years, and then all of a sudden one of us goes into care and the other one's left at home. And it's typically, and I'm generalizing here, right? But it's typically, this is what I see. It's typically the men who do it harder when their wives go into care. That's just a generalization, but it typically is the fact. So a lot of the time, the work I do with families is about obviously helping mum get into residential aged care, but we also need to make sure we look after dad. And when someone's left at home on their own after 55 years of marriage, that's it's got to be a real focal point to make sure we look after that person as well. So I spend a lot of time there as well. Yeah.
And as it's got here, obviously, like you see these a lot. They're common. They're completely normal. But they're all navigable.
Yep.
Sorry. With the right guidance and obviously preparation. So we moved on to the slide before, but when should we start planning for aged care?
So again, I'm going to use a generalisation, Jayden, and it comes back to my financial planning days, right? Because that's what financial planners do. They help people to plan the future. And Australians aren't good at that. We don't like to do that typically. Australians typically like to live from crisis to crisis, I reckon. So when it comes to aged care, it's typically that's a classic scenario where we don't really want to talk about it until something happens, and then we've got our skates on. Yeah.
Yep.
So when we should start planning for this is we should start planning for this in good times rather than not so good times. Yep. And I've got some tips. We'll come up to a slide down the back of this presentation where I talk about some things that we can start thinking about because, we're running this webinar today, Jayden. I do a lot of community events up here in northern New South Wales as well. And it's amazing how many people will ring me and say, "Oh, Hazy, I see you're running a gig at Ballina. We want to come along, but it's not us yet. We just want to come along for some information."
Mm-hmm.
And I say, that's all real good. Come along and get some information. But then I know that 9 out of 10 or 8 out of 10 people who then leave those events don't do anything when they leave until there's a crisis. Yep. So planning for this before an event is a really good thing. And there's some things, and like I said, we'll touch on this in a slide coming up, but there are some things that people can do now that help them sort of line their ducks up so that if or when they're in a situation where they're needing to move fast, that will put them in good stead, because I see the benefits of planning ahead, and then I see the not so good benefits of trying to make decisions when we're in crisis. And as you know, Jayden, especially when it comes to money, making big money decisions or big finance decisions, not good to be doing when you're under stress or pressure or high emotion to get that right. So,
yeah, absolutely.
So, that sort of makes sense, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. And it all comes down to, the benefits of early planning, having these decisions pre-made before we're in a, point of crisis. So everyone's really clear. One, I'd imagine also, so what the person going into care wants. You've also had the discussion whether this is mentioned, around powers of attorney and, end of life care, all that sort of stuff. It all boils down to, planning, open conversation, which, as you said before, we don't like talking about getting old, but it's inevitable for all of us. And they're important conversations to be had. So maybe you want to talk a little bit more about some of the other benefits of early planning.
So yeah, just to touch on that point, Jane. Like I said, this is something we can't avoid. God had the Bible, and He made the story about how we start young and we grow old. No one's going to reverse that, no matter how much money you got, or no matter how much power you think you got, or no matter how good you think you are. It is happening. So some pointers around, what you can do to plan ahead. And it's a bit about, when you get together as a family, it's about observing what's going on around the place, right? So here's a couple of little pointers, because I go to some places, because I go to people, if I can physically go to someone's surroundings I do that. You know, a lot of the time, it doesn't matter where people are. They can be all over Australia, all over the world. But if I can get to someone's place, I like to go there and have a bit of a look around, because we talked a bit about falls before. I was at a place 2 weeks ago where I seriously had to walk down the hallway of this house, sort of slinking sideways in the middle, because I had so much stuff shoved into the house and against the hallway, and there were carpets up in the air and all that sort of stuff. And I thought, there's your classic fall hazard, waiting for you right there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So looking at those sorts of things, sitting down and having the conversation, if mum and or dad will have it with you, and we'll talk a bit about that in a minute. But, you know, Dad, tell me a bit about, you know, your life and where you would like to see, you know, you head. Like, what's the future look like for you, Dad? And sometimes you'll get a good conversation. If it's my dad, you won't, because he doesn't want to talk about it. Yeah. So there's a lot of people who don't want to talk about those sorts of things. But trying to observe and have little conversations around those sort of areas about how you want to live the rest of your life are good. Yeah. So does that help, Jayden, with that? Have you got?
No, absolutely, mate. Absolutely.
Yep.
I think that's very helpful. And I think we will talk about, you know, other ways, you know, how we can open up those conversations in a moment too. Now, one other little activity you had here, Shane, and wanted to talk through was the Home Help Weekly activity timetable. Can you talk us a little bit, or tell us a bit about this tool and how you utilize it with some of the people you work with?
Have a look at my brilliance, Jayden. Have a look at that. Like, you know, you and Amy are super duper clever, but have a look at that. Like, isn't that just the most beautiful thing you've ever seen?
I still don't believe you did it yourself.
I did it myself. I did it on Word. Took me about probably 15 minutes because I type really slow. But one of the exercises I try to get families to do is to sit down with mum and or dad and start to map out those things that you're doing as part of your daily, weekly routine. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I do that because Australians are typically, we are creatures of habit. Once we build a habit in, we typically do it. So, for instance, we go shopping every Thursday morning before lunch. Yep. So I've done this little timetable where I've looked at the 7 days a week. Took me a while to think of this one, Jane, but we've got 7 days in the week, and then I've broken it up into 3 groups: before lunch, after lunch, and in the evening. And what I get families to try to do is try to write down in each of those areas the things that they're doing at that time of the day. And it's amazing if you take this exercise seriously and you start to do this, you start to realize that, holy hell, there is a lot of things that I do, and I do them repetitively. And so putting that down on paper is a good thing, because I'm a very visual person. So putting things on paper means a big deal to me, because I'm getting old myself. So, but seeing things on a bit of paper visually is a good thing. So I get people to fill this out, and then what I get them to do, and it's a bit like your and my business, Jayden. You know, there are things that we do in our business that you and I do because we're good at it and we love doing it. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
But there's other things that we do in our business that we need to outsource because we're either really terrible at it or we don't want to do it. So so the same principle applies to the activities in our home. So what I get people to do is to fill out that 7-day program. And then I get them to go through with a highlight pen, and I say, highlight those areas that if you could possibly outsource them or get someone else to do them, what would they be? And then with a highlight pen, people go through and start highlighting a few of those activities. An example, you know, we all might put down at the early evening, 7 days a week, we cook our own food for dinner. We might then decide that, you know, for 2 or 3 nights a week, we don't want to do that anymore. We'd like someone else to either do that for us or help us with that. So with a highlight pen, you go through and you highlight those areas or those activities that if you could possibly outsource them, you'd like to do it. And then once you've done that, voila, like magic, out falls your home care plan. Mm-hmm. So when we're starting to talk about what sort of help we need in the home with providers or whoever that might be, or family, we've now built ourselves a roadmap of those things that we need a bit of help with. Now, I can tell you, Jayden, I will give 10 people that beautiful piece of artwork there, that one pager, and 2 or 3 out of 10 will actually do this as a serious exercise. 6 or 7 for one reason or another, too hard, don't want to do it, don't know what you mean, blah, blah, blah. The 2 or 3 out of 10 who do this exercise seriously, we get some really good outcomes when it comes to their home care planning.
Yeah.
It's no rocket science to this. It's just, this makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, some of these answers may be obvious to people, but what are some of the other, common activities that you see highlighted from the 2 or 3 people that do fill this out?
So the first I suppose area that people's attention is drawn to, and when it comes to home care, and this is what happens in home care, you get a package, whatever it might be, and you get a provider turn up and they'll say, oh yeah, we'll come out and clean your house and we'll mow your lawn. That's typically what I hear every single time. And that's cool. That's cool for some people, but it's not the be all and end all, right? So, putting down things like cleaning the house, well, and I know a guy who's 96 years of age, living at home, done this exercise, and he puts cleaning the home every day for half an hour or so, and he is that's his exercise. He's fit and healthy, he can do it. So that's his exercise for the week, which is beautiful. So no, don't need anyone to come and clean my home. Thanks. Doing that myself. Yeah.
Yep.
But there's things like getting a bit of sadly, a lot of people live on their own.
Mm-hmm.
So isolation and loneliness is a big deal in Australia. So it might be as simple as having just someone come and visit them and talk to them for an hour or so, a couple of days a week. Mm-hmm. Either don't have family around at all or have family around who don't care. I see all of that. I see families living around the corner from each other and they never see their kids for whatever reason. So it might be a bit of just support or companionship at home. It might be around cooking meals. Mobility and movement is a big deal, Jayden. We need to make sure that we keep ourselves as we get older in a position where we can be mobile and move.
Mm-hmm.
So it might be getting some, exercises or some physio or getting some massage or whatever it might be to help keep your body as nimble as it possibly can as we get older.
Mm-hmm.
And then it might be things like moving into the community, like staying community focused and connected. So as we get older, and we see this as we get older, at some stage we might lose our license. We lose the ability to drive a car. And for a lot of people, especially men, you might as well just cut off my head.
Yeah.
Same thing. Yeah. So getting and moving around the community is a big deal. So this might be that, you want to go, you might want to go to the beach 2 days a week just to sort of sit around, have a cup of coffee and have a chat to someone and watch the water, whatever it might be. Yep. So there's a whole range of things that people can think about in terms of what their typical week looks like, because we want to live the best life we possibly can. And this is your time to be able to, on this bit of paper, express that.
Yep. Yep. Well, I mean, on the subject of home care, and you obviously mentioned that there's a lot of options. Do you want to talk us maybe through this other beautiful diagram we've got here, and what that could look like for people who are at that potential stage or moving to that potential stage of care?
It's not as beautiful as the previous slide, Jayden, because I didn't do this one. I did the other one, but this looks way complicated, right? But I stole this from somebody. But it's a busy slide, but what it's basically typifying, mate, is come the 1st of November this year, there are a lot of changes coming to aged care. Mm-hmm. And this is all as a result of the Royal Commission into aged care about 4 years ago. We're now finally starting to see some some things come out off the back of that 4 years on. Yeah, and I won't go into the politics of it all because I'm very apolitical, but there are some changes coming. Was supposed to be here on the 1st of July, all got too hard for everybody, so the government kicked it down the road for another couple of months. So 1st of November, and I hear that they can't kick the can any further than that. It's got to start on that date. But there are a lot of changes coming to resi care and home care. And that one there, sorry, mate, you just flicked off that.
Yeah, sorry, I accidentally went one forward.
Yeah, okay, yep, all right, I see what you mean. So, yeah, so they're the changes coming. So, in other words, off the back of the Royal Commission, if you remember that 4 years ago, people weren't being looked after real well, supposedly in aged care. They were eating terribly, blah, blah, blah. So got a Royal Commission, spent billions of dollars, and now we're starting to see some big changes coming. So around regulation, so in other words, the compliance and all that sort of stuff, the quality of standards that home care providers and aged care facilities have to adhere to, and they get audited, huge. Some say that with aged care, it's all about, if you work in that space, it's all about the paperwork and the compliance, which is a good thing, but it can also be a limiting thing, yeah?
Yep.
And then there's things like changes to home care, which we'll talk about that slide we just had on there before, and also resi care. But if I had to explain the changes coming down on the 1st of November, I'll give it to you in one sentence. The more money you have, the more you're going to pay.
Yeah.
That's the thing, because the government are saying, it doesn't matter which government it is, doesn't matter what colour jersey they wear, they're all the same. They say, we know we've got an ageing population. We commit certain funding to the budget each year for that. And we need people who are going to use those services to contribute more to that, because apparently we want to buy more nuclear submarines and look after our old people. So that's all I'll say politically. But aged care costs money, as does the NDIS, as does childcare. And the changes coming basically will say that if you're going to utilise services either in the home or ultimately go into aged care and resi care facilities, we're going to have a look at your means, your financial stuff. And if you're a client of Jayden Post, your financials will be just through the roof, buzzing away. But the more you have, the more you're going to pay.
Yeah.
So if you can just go back to that previous slide, mate, because that's just the home care one. I just wanted to show people, yeah?
Yeah.
That one there. So if you're going to get help in the home, there's a process you need to follow, but this is ultimately you need some help in the home. You've gone through the assessments and someone's come out and they've said, all right, you're going to get a level 3 home care package or level 4 home care package, whatever it might be, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
What that basically means is come the 1st of November, the way people are going to be assessed. Now, this doesn't matter whether you are on a home care package now or not. Come the 1st of November, if you're on an existing package, you're going to get reassessed into this new, what they call supported home program. And what the assessment is going to do is it's going to basically divide those activities that you need a bit of a hand in into 3 areas, basically 3 areas. One's called clinical. So that's as if you need a nurse to come to your house and help you with stuff, that's clinical. Also, physios and allied health sort of stuff is going to fall under the clinical banner. The next, and that's up the top left there, the next one in the middle is what they call independence. So you need a hand with sort of getting out of bed, showering, dressing. You need help getting amongst the community, those sorts of things, independence type activities. That's the second grouping. And then the third grouping is everyday living. So everyday living includes things like your cleaning, your cooking, your meals. I mean, it means gardening, those sorts of things, lawn mowing. So basically, all the activities you can get under your home care package are going to be divided into 3 groups: clinical care, independence, and everyday living. And then what's going to then happen is they're going to have a look at your financial means and whether you're a full pensioner, a part pensioner, or a self-funded retiree. You're going to be asked by the government to contribute funds. So, for instance, in this, I don't have a little squiggly thing, but in this clinical care group, Yep, regardless whether you're a full pensioner, a part pensioner, or a self-funded retiree, if you're getting clinical care services, the government say, we are going to pay for that. You don't have to contribute any money to those services. Beautiful, makes sense. But then if we go into the independence or the everyday living, you can see there, for instance, for a full pensioner, if you're getting independent services, whatever that costs, the government is going to say, as a full pensioner, we're going to ask you to contribute up to 5%. And same with everyday living. And then down the bottom there, self-funded retiree under the independence group of activities, you can pay up to 50% and everyday living up to 80%. So in other words, the more you have and depending what activities you need help within the home, the government are going to look at your means and then work out a number in terms of what you're going to contribute yourselves. And some will say, well, we've already had a system like that. Well, yes, we have to a point, but a lot of those costings or a lot of those things that people have been asked to pay for have been waived in the past. The government have said, come the 1st of November, that all stops. We want to have a look at people's means, and if you're going to and we're going to ask you to contribute some funding yourself. So that's going to be the big thing that's going to change with home care come 1st of November, Jayden.
Yep.
There's other things with Resi Care. So Resi Care, same thing. The more you have, the more you're going to pay. And if you ever looked at residential care in terms of the fees that people are being asked to pay, a lot of fees can work out to be some pretty big numbers. And the contribution, depending on whether you're a full pensioner, part pensioner, or a self-funded retiree, will go up. Mm. So they're the financial changes, if you like, Jane, trying to sort of summarise that in 5 minutes or less, yeah?
Yeah. And this is obviously, as you said, this is just the home care stuff. There's obviously the changes that are coming in with residential aged care and all the different types of payments, which we won't get into fully today. But, it's a pretty good summary of, where things are at now and what's changed. So what would someone's next steps to get started? And I just, we've got a couple of other little slides here on more common family scenarios and, ways you can get the conversation started too. But yeah, typically, how would you approach this?
So it is a really awesome slide that Amy's done for us. And it talks about, the steps, and they're the steps. The first thing we want people to be doing is talking about this, having conversations. I've got because I've probably got a financial planning background like yours, Jane. I love planning. I'm a weirdo. I plan everything, both in 1, 3, 5, 10 year slots, and I have contingency plans if things don't work out. So I'm a bit of a nerd when it comes to planning, but having that conversation and trying to put some thought together about what are the things that we need to be aware of or thinking about or doing is a big deal. Yeah. Assessing and that leads to the next one, assessing your current needs, which is my awesome work of art around that weekly timetable. Yeah. It's just amazing when you do that exercise and you think about what you do every day of the week and when you do it, it's amazing what patterns will fall out of that. And then it's amazing what you can then do to work out what sort of activities in there that you would either want to keep doing yourself or get someone to do it for you. And then with all these changes coming with home care, where it's going to be the more the more you're going to pay. And especially if you're a part pensioner or a self-funded retiree, you might start thinking about, all right, well, if I need an activity to do that I'm prepared to outsource, do I do that through a package or do I go out privately and try to find someone to do that? That's going to be the future beyond the 1st of November. There are going to be more and more people thinking about what activities they need and where do they go to get them. and how much they're prepared to pay for them. So, which then leads into the next one around understanding finances, Jayden. You know, this is all about, it's all about how you got things structured. That's why they need a good financial planner like you and the cruise team. People need to sort of get their ducks lined up in terms of their finances and those sorts of things, yeah? Because it's amazing how many people I sit in front of, elderly mum and dad, and we've got 16 bank accounts across 5 different financial institutions because we want a bit of money in each of those jars just in case one of the banks goes broke.
Yeah.
For the adult child who's trying to help mum and dad manage their finances, that's a hassle.
Yeah, and you and I worked on a family earlier this year that had 4 different investment platforms, 4 super funds, direct shares, dating back to 1990. It was really fun for the children and us to help, clean that up and work out, they obviously moved into a residential aged care facility, but big sum of money needed to be paid and, working out where was the best place to take that money, but then also taking a view of cleaning things up. So when, the inevitable does come to pass, things are nice and tidy for the kids at that point in time as well.
A lot of work, and, look at all the work that you put into that one, Jayden, and the stress and that on the family. We've got through that nicely, thanks to you in large part. But, the other thing about people's finances is people seem to think that this organisation called Centrelink know everything about us. And we don't really need to tell them too much because they just know it. They know about our stuff. Well, in some cases, as you know, mate, they do know a lot of stuff about us. If we are putting in a tax return, or we've got some superannuation, or we've got some shares that are registered, those organisations feed data to Centrelink about us, yeah? But when it comes to things like bank accounts and those sorts of things, Centrelink have no idea unless you tell them. So making sure all your stuff's up to date with Centrelink is a big deal as well, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. And
just getting all your finance stuff sorted out and just trying to make, especially if you're the adult child who's trying to help mum and or dad manage all through this, getting all that stuff lined up, knowing where their stuff is, knowing who they bank with, because it's amazing. Well, it's not amazing because it happened to me. I had no idea with the person I helped. I had no idea who they bank with until I asked them. So getting all those sorts of things lined up, mate, is really important.
Yeah, absolutely. Hazy, we just got a question from Julie, but we might reserve those just to the end. I'm also just conscious of time at the moment too. So obviously the next, part there is to potentially book a strategy meeting. But I'll quickly skip forward as well, just to, talk a little bit about the cost of waiting, which was implied in some of our earlier slides, but you just want to touch on this in a bit more explicit detail.
Yeah, mate, I'll summarise this one pretty quickly. When you're going through this aged care journey stuff, there's a lot of stress, there's a lot of high emotion. And when you're making big decisions for people or yourselves and you're under that sort of pressure, you typically don't make good decisions.
Yeah.
Both for yourself personally and also financially. So the cost of this is because when this starts to happen, things start to happen really fast and people feel like they're being put under pressure by people. Well, come on, Jayden, hurry up and make a decision about your dad because we got 55 people lining up behind you. What do you want to do? Yep. So they're the sorts of pressures that people are under. So when you're under that sort of pressure, you typically don't make good decisions. And, getting it right and planning ahead, it's all about mum and dad, tell us what the rest of your life, what do you want it to look like? Draw a picture for me, paint it for me. Yeah. So that's that slide there, mate.
We've got another, just to finish off on before we get to the tips, just some other, common family scenarios that you see. And then, the next slide is just some of those conversation starters to, help people get started with those. So do you want to talk us through these ones and then we'll talk about the strategies?
When we start to raise this with our mum and or dad, especially dad, I don't want to talk about it. You put me in the grave early. I want to live at home as long as I possibly can, and blah blah blah. Yep. So having discussions trying to have discussions with people about this sort of stuff can get shut down really fast.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really easy to then just walk away and go, well, I tried. No one wants to talk about it, so we won't talk about it until something happens, and then we're in hospital and we're needing to move fast. Yeah.
Yep.
If I could sort of summarize that slide in just 3 words when it comes to trying to open up the conversation is, Mum and Dad, we're not trying to rule your lives or tell you what you need to do, but we want to talk to you about this sort of stuff and get some things in place. And here are the 3 words, just in case.
Yeah.
They're beautiful words because they're just words that sort of talk around the fact that there are some things that we probably could do now, not us yet, but there's probably some things we could do now just in case. And I love those 3 words because they do open up the conversation. And Jayden, thanks for that slide there. So these are the things that I talk to people about, what you could or should be doing, even though it's not you yet, but it's just in case. The first one I say to people is get your legal documents in order, get your wills up to date, get your powers of attorney up to date, enduring guardians, know where they are stored, the originals, know what's said in them. If you've nominated someone to be your power of attorney, make sure you tell them that they have been nominated. Make sure they accept that role because it's a very big role. But that one there, Jayden, review your legal documents. I've got a couple of cases at the moment where that just hasn't been done. And man, oh man, what a mess. It's just, you add so many levels of complexity and emotion and pressure and stress because we haven't got those documents. And then all of a sudden we're starting to deal with government departments, which is not good. So reviewing legal documents is such a big deal, and it's something that can be done so easily at such little cost. Solicitor to get all that stuff reviewed might cost you, $1,000 or $1,500 or something, but what you pay for versus if you get it right, the costs of not doing that are huge.
Yep.
Registering of My Aged Care. Nothing happens in aged care until you register with them. So you ring this phone number, and you say, I want to register with My Aged Care, you get a code. Regardless whether you do anything with that code at that point, but getting registered with My Aged Care is a big starting point because nothing happens until you do that. Yeah. Nominate people who can talk on your behalf. So with My Aged Care, you can ring them and you can say, I want to nominate my daughter as a person who can talk on my behalf if I can't for some reason. Same with Centrelink, you can do that as well, yeah? But having someone who can back up and talk on your behalf is a big deal because down the track, if you can't make those decisions yourself and you're relying on other people to do it for you, nominating someone with those organisations is a big deal. Getting all your important documents sorted. The number of times where I've sat at a dinner table and someone's emptied out a shoebox on the table and said, here's all our financial stuff. Can you work through that for us?
Mm-hmm.
So getting everything together. So your most important documents, your latest bank statements, your super statement, the name of your financial planner, whatever it might be, getting all that in one location and then telling your kids where that is, where they find that. Yeah.
Yep.
And then the last one, which is going back to that awesome slide of mine, that weekly plan. I keep coming back to that. It was so good. But, if you could do those 5 things with, as an adult child with your mum and or dad, regardless of whether it's them yet, but we're doing this just in case, you will be so far ahead of the curve if or when this happens and things start to move fast.
Yeah, I think that's an awesome place just for people to open the conversation, feel like they've made some progress, and potentially then move to the next steps. Which Shane, you've offered a complimentary consultation with everyone here today, or anyone that does, watch this in the future, if you want to have a chat with Shane just around, how we can help you navigate these for either yourself or, mum and dad, happy to do that. And then the same obviously goes for us at Cruise. Anyone wanting to have an initial call just to, look at your finances or even work with Shane, and, we commonly team up with a lot of clients to navigate both side of the aged care side of things, and then how the financial side is impacted. We've both got that there. Shane, obviously you're not alone on this journey, so if I've taken anything out of it, it's obviously start early, start together, get some help, because it's quite a complex area. There's lots to think about, but hopefully what we've gone through has, largely yourself, some very practical steps, some common objections, and, ways that you can, get around them, and just, really plan for either yourself or your parents, and, do it in a way where it's respectful of, the people involved, and conscious of, some of these really hard conversations, which we don't like having.
Building a good team around you, Jayden, is really important. It's important in sport. It's important in life. Yep. So you find your tribe, you build a good team around you, so that if you do need a bit of a hand, you've got some people you can call on.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
we've got one question so far, and I'll open it up to anyone else if there are some questions that you'd like to ask. But Julie did comment a little bit ago just around what the amounts are for the means testing.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any idea what they are? Because I know they obviously get indexed every few months, so they do change quite a bit. And it depends, as I understand, if, couple, single, homeowner, non-homeowner. So there's a few things to consider, but do you have an estimate, Shane, off the top of your head?
Well, when it comes to resi care, so going in an aged care facility, and this might be what Julie's alluding to, but we'll talk about resi care because that's something I can explain pretty quickly and easily. If you go to resi care, the first thing that happens is the government say, we want you to tell us about your stuff, your financial stuff, and you fill out a big 21-page form, assets and income form, you send it off to the government, and they look at your means. And the first thing they look at is if you're a single person, and I'll just give you some roundabout numbers, but a bit over 200,000, 206,000 for a single person. If you've got assets over that outside of your home, or if you're a couple, multiply that by 2. So 206 by 2 is 412. If you've got assets above that, the government say you're paying a RAD. So when you go and talk to an aged care facility and they start rabbiting on about, oh, well, come and have a look at the room and it's $700,000. By the way, how would you like to pay for that? That is your world. Yeah. So that's, there's other things they look at, like your means. If you've got certain means above limits, and you're right, Jayden, before they change these limits probably twice a year, March and September. But in aged care, there's also this thing called a means tested fee. So the government say, we're going to have a look at your financial means, and if you've got the ability to throw a bit of extra money into the can, we're going to ask you to do that. So that's through a means tested fee. But to hopefully answer your question, Julie, when it comes to residential facilities, the government want to look at assets above that. At the moment, the mark's $206,000 for a single, multiply that by 2 for a couple. It then depends on the home and what's happening with the home. Is someone living in the house when you go to care? A whole range of things, but they're the sort of limits you need to think about when it comes to resi care. With home care, with this co-contribution amount that we talked about before, how much people need to throw into the can for home care activities, there are some formulas. I've looked at them. They've made my eyes bleed, so I haven't really worried about them too much at this stage, but there are formulas around the co-contribution amount. But interestingly enough, a lot of these changes are coming 1st of November. A lot of work still going on behind the scenes about what these rules are actually going to look like. So that's sort of still evolving, but hopefully that's helped, Julie. If it's a specific situation you want to talk about, happy to have that conversation with you privately on a phone call or a Zoom call where I might be able to sort of look and help you in sort of more detail. But generally, they're the sorts of limits. Yeah.
Yeah, that's super helpful. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Julie.
If there's no other questions, we might wrap that up, Shane. We'll send everyone else out your details as well of how they can get in contact with you. Here's Cruz's details. You'll get a recording of this webinar as well if you want to come back and refer to any of the bits of or nuggets of gold that Shane's been over today. Thanks everyone for taking the time out of your day. Really appreciate it. And also really appreciate Shane, imparting all the wisdom and knowledge today. It's been very helpful, hopefully, for a lot of people in here. And really looking forward to continuing the conversation with anyone that feels like they want to.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Jayden and Amy, for letting me participate in this. I really appreciate it. And love to, if anyone wants to talk a bit more about their sort of circumstances specifically, be more than happy to do it. So thanks, everybody. And thanks, Jayden and Amy as well, and the team at Cruise. Awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a good day.